This is going to be a race to get through what needs to happen to change what we have to fix at the border in 5 minutes. It's a three-pronged approach. Number one, we have to change our Texas laws in order to be able to make it more difficult for you to be able to hide behind your lack of identifying yourself to a police officer. How does that happen? The Border Patrol has what's known as, or the feds have what's known as a border zone, and that border zone extends from the river 10 miles or so inward. And in that area, a lot of the things that are required by law enforcement to be able to enforce the laws are a lot more lax. For that matter, that would be, for an example, that would be probable cause. In Texas, typically, in order for a police officer to stop you, he has to have probable cause. He has to have some reason for why it is that he's going to turn the lights on and turn you into a potential criminal. If you deserve it, sometimes if you don't deserve it, you're turned into a potential criminal, depending on what the nature of the stop is. Secondly, if you have a lack of probable cause in the border zone, which the Border Patrol does, they don't require the same degree of probable cause that we do that's set out in our penal code. We need to change the penal code so that we create our own Texas border zone akin to what's going on in the international border zone, so that we have a right to stop a vehicle for whatever the reason is, simply because it's in the border zone, and inquire whether or not that individual is or is not able to identify themselves. And 95% of those people that come across the river intentionally do not have the ability to identify themselves. When that happens, the penal code should charge that officer with the obligation to pick that individual up if he's not able to provide sufficient identification, and take him to the local county jail, where he's going to be fingerprinted and his ID attempted to be ascertained. If we can't do that, then he or she or their children go over to the ICE center, and we make that the Fed's problem. That's the enforcement part of what law changes will happen and what we need to do in order to make that happen. Secondly, when you have sanctuary cities, you're not going to disincentivize anybody from coming here when all they have to do is look from the south to the north and see nice hotels, clean streets, no potholes, an economy, a civilization, a population, a culture that has what they don't have and what they will not have. And so when you have the opportunity to invite people from another country that wants what we have, and you incentivize them to come here, you can expect to see what we have now. And it is not going to change. And for Houston to be able to say they're going to have a sanctuary city is absolutely nonsensical. Illegal aliens that are up here without driver's licenses and without insurance, and one of which ran into one of our vehicles at Royal Disposal and totaled it. $500,000 our insurance company paid. And what happened to that individual? The HPD came up. He couldn't prove who he was. They wrote him a ticket utilizing whatever his name was. And did you think he went to court? You gotta be kidding. My insurance company, your insurance company, and our cost of doing business went up $500,000, and we had to pay the deductible. The next thing is, you can put as many people on that border as you want. And we certainly need a lot more. But when you put the rules of engagement such that you can't do a darn thing when they're there, why should they be there? It's a waste of money. Do you remember back in the 1830s when we could sit there and watch the TV about the 1830s, and we had sheriffs and we had posses? What's wrong with that idea? Because there's a little-known agency that hasn't got the same authority that it used to have, and it's called the Texas Rangers. And back in the 1830s, they were clothed with that responsibility. And in fact, they are an agency of the Department of Public Safety. Why is it that we have the Minutemen, who are civilized people, civilians is what I'm looking for, that are down there? Some of them may not be civilized. But they're down there, and they're looking at each other into the abyss through binoculars, and they're all, it's like the no-man land in Korea, between the North and South Korea border. If we had law enforcement authority that we could clothe the sheriff with the responsibility of putting those kinds of people on the border that have powers of arrest. We can do a lot more besides having to ship our DPS guys from 254 counties to the border. Last part, and most importantly, Greg Abbott. Thank God for Greg. Thank God for the fact that he's a lawyer. Because the only way that we're going to turn back what's happening right now is we're going to have to sue the hell out of the federal government. Arizona did it. House Bill 1070 was the result of it, and it was proved to be constitutional. We need to do some things in the next session of the legislature on both the House and the Senate. It gives us a lot more leverage, constitutionally speaking, and I'm a constitutional lawyer, and I know exactly how to do this. You're going to have to create a compelling state interest, which gives us the right to do a lot more powers in this state because we are overrun. They're overrunning our services. They're overrunning our hospitals, and that has to stop, and it can. But you've got to create the constitutional framework. It was already done for us thanks to the state of Arizona. All we have to do is follow in those footsteps, and we'll be able to do that very easily. Thank you.